like the first show I went to at the Love Club was I saw the Misfits. There was the Misfits and the Necros.
That was the first. Oh, for I Love. Yeah, I guess you're right.
And it was funny because it was a 21 and over club at that point, and we were just like, yeah, we're gonna try and get in. And it was like trying to go up to the door. No, got turned away. And this was kind of unusual. Like at that point in time, if you were 17, you could probably get into a club. It wasn't as hard as nowadays for kids, underage kids, to get into clubs. So we tried. We were getting ridiculous. We kept going up to the door, trying to get in. Finally had like a friend of mine on my shoulders wearing the trench coat, like, hello there, I'm here to see my son, you know, like the Three Stooges or the Little Rascals sort of thing. We were trying. And we were just sitting there outside the club, just kind of like, oh man, what the hell? And like Glenn Danzig comes up and he's like, oh, what's wrong, kids? And we're like, well, we can't get into the club. You know, Danzig looks at us and goes, I want to show you something. Takes us over to the side door, pulls a knife out of his pocket, goes to the door. Jimmy's opened the door with the knife. Goes, here, kids, I want to show you something. Swings the door open, says, enjoy the show, guys. So, you know, and
they got ball cat.
Yeah. So like Danzig's cool, man. I was like, Danzig like just got underage kids into his show. And then like seeing the Necros play there was awesome.
Broad and South was a whole different world back then. You know, Philly was a different world back then. You know, we're talking about like it was like. It's so fucking pasteurized right now, man. The way like when you walk down the street back in 1982 or 83 and you had a bald head and like an army jacket, you were fucked. Like you were fucked, you know. It was a different thing. So, you know, Broad Street in general, that whole area was really fucking dicey, man. It was like you didn't go, white kids didn't go down there. It was like homies, man. You know, the ghettos were like, you know, the high rises were at like 13th and Fitzwater. That whole area was like really, really not, you know, like dicey. So this dude, homeless guy, crazy dude, walks into the bar. We were in D.C. for the Rock Against Reagan show. So it was the Kennedys, Crucifix, MDC, all these bands were playing in D.C. The next day, we had a show in Philly with Jodie Foster's Army. And we got word that this crazy dude walked up to the bar, got a bunch of drinks, picked up a hooker, went upstairs, and lit the place on fire.
I remember me being a 17-year-old kid and Bush was like, yo, can we put Bad Luck on your show? And I'm like, yeah. And then I remember booking a show at the Frankfurt, what is that place called? The FSV Dutch Club behind North Catholic. And the guy said, 50% of the door to me, 50% of the door to you. When I was 17 years, I wasn't even 17, I think it was like still like, yeah, I was 16 turning to 17. I shook hands, agreed to it. We had 125 pages. Like, you didn't really make that much money at $10, it's $1,200. You didn't really make that much money, so we're keeping it. And I was like, oh, And he's like, yeah, next time though. I went outside to Jay Goldberg. Yo, they said they're not giving us any money. He's like, fuck them, we'll fucking destroy this place. And I'm like, yeah, he's like, tell everybody, when we go on, we're burning this place to the ground. Okay, I'm going to burn this place to the ground. Yo, tell all the kids who are 14, 15, 16 from our neighborhood, not even hardcore kids, neighborhood kids, the one riff, everyone started throwing school desks all over the place. So when I think about it, I think about being like, I think about Jay Goldberg and the Bad Luck guys who have always been like mentors and like bigger brothers than me, being able to be like, yeah, we're just going to do this, and me be like, we're just going to do this. Okay, cool. You know, and ironically, it's like almost 20 years later and we still have conversations. Fuck that, we're just going to do this. You know, like, and that's always been, that's so punk rock and so real like that. But I mean, you know, Bad Luck's the first band that like, you know, yeah, they'll borrow your equipment, but they'll make sure that, you know, if bouncers put their hand in it or kick their ass, you know. Like,
one of the big players back in the day was Met. You know, he started all that and Too Damn Hype record label. He had a lot of good people on his label. I mean, he had Starkweather, One Life Crew. He would bring the other side to it, where bands people didn't want. Bad Luck, you know. And we, you know, I mean, John Dudak was a huge part of this scene. I remember when he would be Unisound with his little box of records, and there wasn't distro yet. That was it. It was like this dude. The only way you were getting the shit he had, because he went to all the shows and he'd buy all the stuff from the bands, and it's just, at the time, if you wanted shit from a band that was through town like 2 weeks ago and you weren't there, the only way you were getting it is from John Dudak. and he blew that stuff up into very distribution, you know. And it's a shame. He was a big wrestling fan too.
A lot of people.
The real hardcore dudes are wrestling fans.
That's right. Yeah, a lot of people talked about John.
So, I mean, yeah, him and Matt and Chuck from Temperance had a lot of big, people say what they want to say, but those dudes, they're a big part of it.
Okay, well, they got a tram car. And it goes, you never hear anybody say, watch the tram car, please, that whole thing. So it comes from Wildwood, from them tram cars going back and forth. So the owner of Mountain Magic Leather had a brainstorm. She goes, well, I'm going to have the Pegging Babies up here. And they can play in the store. And, bring some customers in. It was whatever the whole thing was. So, we start getting into a set, and it's loaded up with people. And they start a circle pit at this thing. You know what I mean? So we're sitting there like wow, and I'm like kind of barely seeing, but I could see just enough I could see the ocean, I could see the boardwalk out the front of the store, and there's this pit going on, and you can see the fucking tram car fucking stopped. This tram car can't get through because there's this swirling fucking circle pit. And all you hear is watch the tram car. You hear the fucking song stop, and you hear, watch the tram car, please. Watch the tram car, please. Fucking dudes, and they weren't moving, man. And we would only stop for maybe about 3 seconds and fucking jump right into another track.
I would order a 7-inch out of the back of Maximum Rock and Roll and send cash money in the mail and wait 4 months for that shit to show up. And I would ride my BMX bike all the way to the other side of the city and ride back with the new Killing Time LP under my arm, and I remember that stuff. If you named a record, I could probably tell you the story about getting it because I remember all that stuff.
A couple of years later, I was to learn about the whole Freeman brothers and their cousin. For anybody that doesn't know about that, these guys, unknown to us, they were psycho. I remember a friend of mine bringing it up. We go, hey, you read the paper? I'm like, no, what are you talking about? Man, that fucking dude with the Berserker tattooed on his forehead. I'm like, Berserker tattooed? He goes, yeah. He goes, that's the dude that used to come to the music hall. I'm like, what? Ran, got a newspaper. There I am looking at the two brothers and the cousin. And, they killed their mom and dad. They killed their whole family. And unknown to any of us, that stuff was fermenting at the Airport Music Hall.
But the show that, when we played Philly, and I forget the name of the bar. Do you remember the bar? It was on South Street.
Was it Pontiac Grill?
Nah.
Is that the one where you threw the dude out the window?
Nah. That was at CC. I think I bounced the sound guy into the wall. Something, I don't know. I know I punched the owner from Scarlett's in the face. But it was a bar on South Street, and we played there with All Out War, Starkweather, and it wasn't a very big crowd. But honestly, when we played, the reaction was insane. It was so violent in a small club. It was definitely one of the shows that stood out in the early days of Fury of 5. As we progressed as a band, that shit just went bananas. You know what I mean? We just got a little following, and people came to maim and destroy.
Punk Rock Prom was always a good time. I think I vaguely remember being there. I just know. The best part about 218 is there's guy's bathroom, girl's bathroom right next to each other. Any given time, you know that there's just 4 people in there together, and you know exactly what they're doing in there. And they all come out, and there's just coke all over their faces. You're like, what is going on in this? What is going on in this place? So that was pretty much it is what it was. I mean, it was punk rock I feel that was the last
No circulation in that place.
No circulation. I mean, they would let you sleep upstairs if you needed to afterwards. And I worked there too. I mean, so I would always bartend the next day.
How exactly did the place end?
It ended.
Yes.
This is also a really good
Infamous story, yes.
Yeah.
There.
So, one of my really good friends, Eric Gambone, who recently has passed away, he, cheers to Gambone on that one. He showed up to work one day, and the owner of the building, which is actually the same guy that owned Lorenzo's Pizza, I guess he sent his son there to start to collect on some rent non-payment. So, Gambone showed up for work the first day, unlocked the doors, and was met with a 12-gauge shotgun to the face. Telling them that he wasn't coming to work today. They weren't opening the doors. Nobody's paid the rent in a while.
Catfish Bullhead?
Members, me, Keats Rickard, John Reynolds, and Jason Sweller, who is now, this is great, lives in Kuwait, and he fixes parts for night vision goggles. He goes out on the field, they give of all people, a gun, a pistol. Sounds pretty dangerous. This is a guy who has gone out in the woods and picked mushrooms just to get fucked up. Oh, I've got a great story about Ern. It's coming out now. He fucked a girl wearing a dress, and you would probably know the girl. We'll get to it after off camera. He was wearing a dress. He fucked a girl, 15 years old. I don't care. She was 15. Fucked her in the ass. He's fucking her in the ass, wearing a dress, and everybody, it was underneath the deck, and everybody's pouring beer all through the cracks, all over the girl. And she's like, yeah. And, but this guy actually fixes...
Needless to say, she lives in Kuwait now, too.
Yeah, totally. A few little running around, but...
But like I said, if there's one thing I could criticize, it would be this. The internet has made it such that a lot of people who've never done or said anything important or created anything or contributed anything to music, not even just hardcore we're talking about now, but like music, heavy metal, whatever you want to call it, these people now have a voice. And that really bothers me because I feel like growing up, you know, I had to keep my mouth shut because who was going to care? And frankly, around these parts, if you were going to talk shit, you were going to get smoked. Some dude was going to rock you because that's how things used to get dealt with. And like I said, it's good it's not like that anymore, you know, but there was a certain romantic sort of thing to that. It was kind of nice to know, like, oh, this dude stepped out of line and we kept him in line. Not we being me, but us, hardcore or whatever. And that doesn't really exist anymore. I think kids are more able to just say whatever they want and do whatever they want because they have a name, they have a face, they're that kid on Facebook or the Bridge 9 board or whatever. I think that's really hurtful because it's making it so that kids who literally are not doing anything, who should be standing in the back, who have nothing to contribute or offer, those kids are the ones who are kind of calling the shots more than the people who are creating music, who are touring, who are being in bands, who are doing shows, who are cooking for bands, who are doing documentaries, who are writing zines, who are doing websites, who are doing whatever. Those are the people I want to be friends with. Those are the people who I think are important. Those are the scene. It's not people who go to shows. That's important and that's helpful. But for God's sakes, if you love this, give something to it. It doesn't have to be much. I love this, so I write music. If you love it and you want to write, you know, a website, do that. Do whatever you want to do. But for God's sakes, do something. Don't just be one of those people who sits around and criticizes, because it's very easy for us to criticize things. It's much harder for you to actually put yourself out there and be the subject of criticism.
Philadelphia was the first city that showed us real love. I mean, even before our hometown, you know. What happened is that I was out riding freight trains out on the West Coast, and I met this kid named Mikey Brosnan, who used to book a lot of shows in Philly. He lived at Stalag 13, and I wasn't even in the band yet. And we became friends out there. We were squatting and stuff, and I rode back with him, Jay from Dis Sucks, and I can't remember who else, somebody else from Philly in a van. And we rode back across country with no money, spare changing to get back and stuff. And we got back to the East Coast, and you know, I just connected with him, and I joined the band. And Mikey was booking shows at Fake House, Kill Time, Stalag 13, which was in West Philly. And he's like, hey man, I heard you have a band, you want to come up and do some shows? So the first show we played in Philadelphia was at Kill Time upstairs.
Really?
Yeah. Upstairs at Kill Time, it was us and Dis Sucks and I can't remember who else. But Adrian Drugas from Spitboy drove us up in her van. And God bless her. That's a long story in of itself, but she drove us up in her van and we played a few songs and I was sick. I couldn't even finish the show, but from there we just started coming up and playing these warehouses a lot, always in West Philly at first, you know, Stalag, Kill Time, Make House, and we played, what, the Rotunda? Is that
Yes,
what
it
was
was.
called?
It's a college campus.
We played the Rotunda a few times, and Mikey booked all those shows. Mikey was a really dear friend of mine, and he was killed on November 16th, 2 years ago. It's coming up, by a drunk driver. So when he died, it really screwed up things for me, because Philly, for me, he was Philly.
What do you got to say to like a lot of people that were like older now and stuff and that bailed and look at you and say like, yeah, you're still doing that shit, you know?
You know what? They're suckers. You know, it's always the same types. Back when they were into it, it was the most important thing, and they wanted to judge everybody. And then when they're not into it, it's stupid. And why are you involved? And it makes them laugh. And it's ironic. But yeah, you always see those. You see those now. I mean, it's an open door. It's like a revolving door hardcore. Out of every 10 kids that comes in, you're lucky if 3 stick around. But not even lucky. You know, it's like you just want the real dedicated, the highly emotional ones, the ones who find this like a spiritual thing. You only want them sticking around anyway. So you want the 7, 8 suckers to keep it moving, have a nice visit, buy some merch, and just bounce anyway. You know what I mean?
Word.
But yeah, it's to those old cats, you see them once in a while, they might give you a smirk and ask you, oh, you're still playing? Like, it's funny.
Mm-hmm.
You give them a smack in the mouth and you walk. It's corny, but we know who's like that.
There's more of a family there than anywhere else.
Exactly.
We're the biggest
They
family.
lost out. Like, we didn't lose out keeping doing this. Like, it's Tuesday night. I just had a really good dinner with a lot of friends. I'm in Philadelphia. I don't live here.
No.
I'm hanging out having fun. Where are they at? Probably changing a diaper or getting yelled at by their second wife. You know what I mean?
Anything you like to add about your time in the hardcore scene here?
I have in my will that when I die, I'm going to be cremated and my ashes are going to be scattered right down from the corner of Broad and South where Love Hall used to be. And that's stipulated in my will, because Love Hall for me was the pinnacle of Philly.
Well, if I had to share a particular story, it would definitely be the story of my friend showing up by my side after I was in a fucking horrible car wreck. And as you can see, my face is a little fucked up. You know, I got into a bad accident, and all I can say is if Pennsylvania is unique in one way, it's that I don't think there's any other place in the world where people are going to come together and fucking help you the way that they have helped me. I woke up in a hospital bed. I didn't know what the fuck happened to me, and all my friends were there by my side, even if they couldn't be in the hospital with me. You know what I mean? They took care of me. They fucking organized shows. They put money together, and they made sure that I was okay. And I really, you know, there's nothing in the world that I could do to repay them for what they actually did for me. They kept my spirits up. You know, they made sure that I was gonna be all right. And I don't know. I don't have anything more to say about that. I'm extremely thankful for having gotten involved in the scene and having those types of friends by my side. Even people who I haven't talked to in years fucking contributed and helped me pick myself back up. And they're probably the reason that I'm here today, so.
What hardcore is to me is everybody could have their little emotional stories, but for a lot of people who didn't know me before the hardcore scene, I was a very quiet kid that stayed in his room for 5 hours every night after school and just watched a bunch of slasher movies. because I didn't really know where I belonged. I had all the heavy metal posters on the wall, and that was the easiest thing to get to, was heavy metal, you know. It was more mainstream, but something was lacking. I really wasn't a metalhead. And when I found hardcore, I found who I was. I found people that were like me, and those people are still with me in my life to this day and will be forever. You found bands that mattered. You found family. Everybody may have their own issues with their own family. I don't, but they might not understand you so much. But hardcore kids do, and that's what you found. So I have like a giant thank you to everybody I met in the hardcore scene. They've helped fill the void in my life, and you know, acceptance. And again, I bring up awareness of what's going on in the world. Like, you ain't getting no goals past us. That's what hardcore is.